Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's been a while since we've talked, but, things have gone on. I have a kid now. We need to be a little bit separate. I'm kidding. I'm always here. It happens. As you may have gathered, this is a slightly more freewheeling episode of What Explained. In fact, it's What No You Explained, where I, in fact, one could charitably say, have different guests around, different podcasters, musicians, people of, repute, creativity, and talent. And some more uncharitably would say, I basically end up giving away half of my work and make somebody else do it for me. So, depending on which way you're going at it, well, I have a guest, and he is one of the busiest people I know. And by and large, he has one band, 2 podcasts. Oh God, what's something you have 3 of? Again, he has I would say one of which is almost a daily podcast, so he's very busy. So naturally, of course, he has a band, a job, and Lord knows what else he does in his free time. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you? Go, please present yourself.
I've got a PS5, so that might be like the next number up there now. That's like taking up the rest of my time. So, band, 2 podcasts, PS5, and now that's busy enough, don't you think?
Oh God, absolutely. I was just gonna say, and maybe you sleep in theory. I don't know, you just lean on a wall and play some Elden Ring. It's something. But anyways, the voice that you hear that isn't me, ladies and gentlemen, Will Cowan.
Hello. Thank you for bringing me on here, Braden. We've been planning this for how long now? A couple of months? I think since you were on our episode on Last Gen Arcade, like probably last year at this point.
I think it might have been last year, but actually, oh God, was it last year? Oh yeah, I think it was November where I ended up we ended up going down a wave of Japanese exclamations about American coolness. Tubular, rad, gnarly.
I think you were on the Super Mario World episode with us. Am I correct?
Or you are indeed correct. Also, the 2 podcasts that Will does have. The one that I've been on, and therefore the one I'm going to start with, is Last Gen Arcade, in which Will and his co-host Nathan Isles, previous guest on the show, and by and large, we'll see how well Will does in trivia. But again, we'll see how that goes.
We'll see how it goes.
I was just going to say, they go through video games from the 7th generation of consoles and backwards, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
around there, give or take. PS3 or further back. That's my mental break.
Yeah.
And also, Will, do you want to talk about Chapter by Chapter real quick before we start?
Yeah, so Chapter by Chapter is a show where me and my good friend Steve, we go through our favorite fantasy and sci-fi books 1 chapter at a time, 1 day at a time, until one of us breaks mentally. We are in the middle of production of our 6th season right now. We're covering the Wheel of Time series. This current book is called The Shadow Rising. And I think it's going to be fun. It's been a long time since we've released the season, because over this past summer I got engaged. I moved into a new job. I've got a house. Like, it was just like all over the place. So it put a lot of we kept on putting that goalpost back. But looking back on the episodes that we have recorded and have ready to go, this is probably one of the most unhinged seasons of Chapter by Chapter yet. And one of us is going to break by the end of it. So if you guys want to hear two guys just going for it and just screaming into a microphone about how crazy a book series is, check out Chapter by Chapter podcast.
You know what? That is one hell of a pitch for it, and we will have the we'll have the links in the show notes, because my God, there are links.
Oh yeah, there are links.
Will, I would say you spend so much time dissecting stories on sort of like your own shows. I think it's only fair I start you off with one. That okay?
Yes, hit me. I'm excited to know what you're going to throw at me.
Thank God. Otherwise, it's going to be this is going to be just like us staring at each other in silence for 45 minutes. And then I just thank you for being here. All right. All right. Oh, I was just saying, listen, I try. All right. So, Will, when I tell you that there's a prevalent state of opinion that, as NoFX stated, the idiots are taking over.
Yeah.
I can't imagine you'd be surprised that this is, it's a pretty widely held opinion.
For sure.
People think everybody else is stupid. They're smart. Everyone else is stupid. That's by and large the average conclusion.
Yeah.
What might surprise you is the extent that one man went to single-handedly try to change this so-called slide into mediocrity.
Ooh.
Robert Graham, a multimillionaire optometrist, not often a word that you get to hear together, and inventor of shatterproof eyeglass lenses, had a belief throughout his life that people were getting dumber. By the way, if you're basically working with heavy equipment and you're wearing, any sort of like protective glassware, a lot of it's cribbing off of his stuff.
That's interesting because I actually work in eye care as my regular day job, and I did not know this.
I think he patented it in like 1961 or something like that. So I think there have been improvements since, but
yeah, for
it's
sure.
enough that there is at least one multi-millionaire optometrist. That's important for what's coming next.
Perfect.
And again, as an elderly white man, he decided that with his wealth, he would try to turn the tide against ignorance. So, did he decide to fund after-school programs to improve the learning of at-risk youth? Did he hire professors and experts in child education to revamp curriculums in schools to make the subject matter more interesting to the students? Of fucking course not. What? A fucking course not. Why would he?
Okay, what do he do? What do he do?
I'm glad you asked, because that's exactly what's next in my script. What he did decide to do was create a sperm bank with the explicit goal of filling the world with descendants of Nobel Prize winners. Because, again, if there's one thing that Robert Graham was besides a multi-millionaire optometrist and inventor of shatterproof eyeglass lenses, it was a goddamn eugenicist.
Wow, oh my god. This is like the reverse story to Idiocracy. You ever seen that movie?
Yep, that was the part that genuinely was like, oh
my god,
this is something I get about this, because eugenics for those at home being the belief that one can improve the overall genetic makeup of the human race primarily by excluding unwanted groups.
Yeah,
a big old example of a guy who believed in eugenics, Adolf Hitler.
Big fan. He almost started a podcast.
Oh, no. I would just say, good thing we don't have clips of this or anything. My God. All right. So, now, Will, given that Robert Graham openly went to the press about this plan, he went out here, announced it, was super proud of it, what year do you think that he made this, declaration in?
Oh, man. Okay. So, if he made the patent for the eyeglasses somewhere in the 60s, and then he became...
Again, that's just my vague recollection.
Yeah, and then he probably became a millionaire after the fact, after he patented it.
Mm-hmm.
And then and this sounds like the ramblings of an incoherent, mega rich person. So I'm assuming that this is probably... I'm going to go late 80s, early 90s.
Oh my God. I would say, actually, you're pretty close. You are pretty close. It was 1980. The exact same year, the Pina Colada song was released. Robert Graham went to the press. That is exactly how I make this mental. Just like, oh yeah, the Pina Colada song was released. Right about that. I assume it was just like playing in the background right in that press conference. Again, Robert Graham went to the press and announced the creation of this Nobel laureate-based sperm bank, officially known as the Repository for Germinal Choice, and it was open for business.
Oh my God. Repository of Germinal Choice? That sounds like a Bad Brains album or like a Bad Religion album or something like that. Like that sounds like a punk as fuck album right there.
Oh my God. Now I need to check afterwards to see if it isn't, because honestly, that's just too good an idea to not.
That is way too good of an idea. That is brilliant stuff right there. Despite the horrible idea behind it, that's a great name.
Everything can't be terrible about everything, just the same as everything can't be good. He could be a horrific eugenicist with a terrible idea. Repository for Germinal Choice? Hell of a punk album name. He also announced that he was seeking married heterosexual women above a certain IQ threshold to carry the children generated from said Nobel winner-based sperm. So again, he's basically, great, I'm looking for superior women to house these superior genes.
Oh, man.
So, as a result, as again you may have expected, at least I hope you may have expected, the reaction was quite negative, given that a lot of people that thought people who believed in eugenics were still alive, kicking, and incredibly pissed.
Oh,
So,
man.
I would say again, there are still a lot of people that fought in World War II still alive in 1980.
Yeah.
So, as a result of this, two of the initial Nobel Prize winning donors abandoned the program and their donations were incinerated. So, the only winner to publicly claim association with the Repository for Germinal Health was William Shockley, a Nobel Prize winning physicist whose other notable fact about him was that he was an outspoken eugenicist who praised Hitler's policies and believed that white people were intellectually superior to black people.
So just a giant garbage bag of a human being.
Yep, I was just going to say, that is their sponsor. That was the sponsor.
Fantastic. Well, I guess evil begets evil in that case.
Just a little fucking bit. So again, not even considering the absolute firestorm of condemnation, which is really, really difficult to not consider.
Yeah.
But Graham had a few further issues with his goal of a Nobel Prize spawned race of super geniuses. In the first half of the 20th century, the average age of a Nobel Prize winner was 56 years old, and that number kept getting higher as time went on. Like, some theorize that, with more people practicing physics, medicine, chemistry, your odds of winning goes from 1 in 1,000 to 1 in a million. So they wait longer for recognition. So even at 56, well, there's just not a lot of viable sperm left. It's just like, after a while, it's just coaxing dust. And there's a wide elderly variance in that amount. Like, I looked that up and just like, oh, there's a lot of 80-year-old physics Nobel Prize winners.
Yeah.
It's like, I just can't imagine that would work.
No.
So, given that, again, Nobel Prize winners are A, reluctant, and B, incredibly ancient, and C, the one guy that was entirely far too okay with giving his sperm was an incredible racist, Graham went a little bit more lax with his requirements after the first uproar, leaning towards younger scientists who had won awards, or master's students at the University of California, near where his offices were. So again, as time went on, Graham even wrote letters to promising up-and-coming scientists, explaining who he was and soliciting donations.
And by donations, do you mean money, or are you saying sperm?
Oh no, semen. Oh, absolutely.
Oh God.
It's sperm. So, Will.
What?
Imagine you're going through your letter just like, this seems strangely official. You open it, you read it, it's a nicely typed out letter asking you for your semen.
Yeah, who probably, you know what?
You burned that, right?
Yeah, he probably used some sort of like letter writing technique, like when you're giving criticism to somebody, you use that like shit sandwich technique where you start with something good, and then you put something constructive in the middle, and then you end it with something good. I would assume that he would say use a similar process of like, hey, you're a great scientist. I did all this research on you. Would love to have your sperm and probably to hang out sometime because I'm using your sperm.
Oh my God. You know what? I think you're right. I've never heard it as the shit sandwich technique. I don't think I can ever use it as anything else. Now that I think about it, I feel like if you're asking somebody for their sperm, it needs to be a handwritten letter, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because you're typing it out in the late 80s. It lacks a humanity that I think you would need when soliciting a stranger for sperm.
Yeah, I think there's a level of warmth that you have to provide and a little more familiarity.
Oh. A little familiarity, I think. Yeah. Again, I cannot emphasize enough. This guy was, I think, like near 90 and still just typing and or handwriting out letters to this.
What a whack job.
Just a little bit. But do you want to know how successful the sperm bank was?
Oh God.
It really wasn't that successful.
Oh, thank God.
Apparently, according to Slate, approximately 217 children were born from quote-unquote donors at the repository, none of whom were born from Nobel Prize winning stock, i.e. the super racist Shockley, because apparently hyper-racist old man does not necessarily work as a seller for women. It's just not a thing that they're into.
Yeah, it's not a great selling point. Like, hey, we're trying to make superhumans. Like, that's a great way to start.
Mhm.
Like, you know what? For all intents and purposes, if you're trying to create superheroes, if you start your pitch like that, I'm willing to bend an ear a little bit. But then you go like, but you know, the people and the system that we have in place is inherently racist and fucked up. That's not going to be really great for anybody looking into this program.
Oh, absolutely. I was just saying, I'm interested. No, I'm going to burn this. I'm going to back right away. Will, I kid you not, there was an SNL skit about this. That's how big a thing this was. It was nuts. So yeah, like even just some of the donors they had included a man who lied about having an IQ of 160 to get into the program, just the average son of a Nobel Prize winner, and an Olympic gold medalist. And as of the children born from this program, as of this recording, there have been no Nobel Prize winners from it. Which I appreciate because I really like when horrible racists are proved wrong.
Yeah, no kidding.
And spend millions of dollars in the process. Again, it's one of these things that it's a tough thing, but I think I'll say it. What? Explain? Against racists.
Yeah.
It's a tough line, but I'll stand it, Will.
Do you think those kids know that that they were born from that program, or do you think their family kind of like hid that from them, just kind of like the embarrassment, maybe?
Actually, kind of on that, there's a series of articles written by, I forget the guy's name, but like a lot of the mothers, like they actually went on the record as just like, okay, they didn't necessarily know who the donors were, like
gotcha,
first and last name. They just went like by like basically just like a color and a number. Like, all right, Fuchsia 36 is like a physics researcher. He's 5'10", brown hair, blue eyes, etc., and so forth.
Gotcha.
So I would say like the mothers exactly know that they came from this project. Whether the kids know, at the very least, I have to assume they probably know that they came from a sperm bank. Whether or not it's this incredibly specific one, no idea. There's definitely a few that do know, and like that was actually just basically when the repository went away in 1999, 2 years after the death of the somewhat hyper-racist Graham. Again, I can say that he's dead. Basically, all of the records were destroyed, so they weren't able to confirm like who the father was. So again, there's a bunch of articles written for Slate trying to connect like the fathers to the children,
right?
And just sort of having an idea of just like how exactly life had been, you know, for them. Whether or not there was actually like something to this whole like, hey, we're breeding a super race thing. Anyways, very interesting. Slightly more of a downturn to the story than I expected to end on, so apologies for that.
No, that's good. That's good. You start off with something a little bit dark, and I can bring us back up again because I chose something a little more light and a bit more of a combination of both of my shows.
I love it. Tell me more.
Okay, so as part of the Chapter by Chapter podcast, we do the Wheel of Time mostly, but we also have done in the past the first two books of Dune. I'm a huge Dune fan. I love Dune. I read Dune for the first time, actually, I think I was maybe like 22, 23, and it more or less just replaced Star Wars for me. Like, this is my universe that I like to hang out in. I love thinking about Dune. The new movie I thought was great. I pretty much like all the Dune products that has come out, like in terms of adaptations and stuff like that. But the one thing that Dune has really struggled in is the video game world. And because if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense because Dune is a lot of like philosophical ideas, a lot of political ideas. In a lot of cases, it's about a lot of taxes. They do a lot of tax talk in Dune. So unless you're like doing some sort of tax simulator, like it's very hard to create a Dune video game. But I'm here to tell you, Braden, that not only did a Dune game have Dune games come out, but one Dune game in particular set the standard and set the expectations for every real-time strategy game to come out since then.
Okay. And was it a tax simulator?
No, I wish it was, though.
God damn it.
The moment that I get a tax simulator from Dune, I'm in, baby, because I love Dune taxes. I can talk Dune taxes all day long.
That's a tongue twister. Go, go, go,
It
go,
is.
go. My God.
Okay. Gotta take a drink real quick.
Oh, by all means.
All right. So I actually did a lot of this research about a year or so ago, before I even started Last Gen Arcade with Nathan, because I was just thinking that this was going to be my own separate podcast by myself talking about video games. But nothing ever went with it. Nothing ever came of this. And now I dug this up from like the annals of my Google Documents history. And I was reading it and I was like, oh my God, I'm still remembering all this shit that I wrote down. So I have like a 14-page document. It's way too long to kind of like regurgitate on here. And it's not written in the sense of like your script, but we'll make it work.
I have faith in you, Will.
All right.
And again, as somebody who talks to himself all the time up for a podcast, it's difficult. Take something out of you.
For sure. Okay, so our story starts off in 1988 with a man named Martin Alper. Martin Alper was the president of Virgin Interactive at the time, and he's a big Dune fan. He was actually looking for a way to adapt Dune into a video game for quite a while, just because he thought the property lent itself to kind of an adventure game format. However, he could not obtain the rights to Dune the book. He did, though, obtain the rights for the Dune movie that came out just a couple years earlier. So this is something that happens quite a bit in the world of adaptations. You may be able to adapt, properties are like think like Lord of the Rings, right? Properties are just kind of like sectioned off piece by piece and sold off to different production houses all the time. And those production houses then have to create adaptations based on the material that they're allowed to work with. So if you think of like the Rings of Power series, like the Rings of Power series they were not allowed to use any of like the appendices from the back of the books. Basically the material that the show is supposed to be based off of, they're not allowed to use it, which kind of led to the mixed results of what we saw from the Rings of Power show. This is exactly what was going on with this particular game. He only got the rights to do a video game adaptation for the Dune movie, not Dune the book. So when you think of that, you're kind of limited to the sandbox that David Lynch created with the movie. We're talking the aesthetics, we're talking about the story, we're talking about like the overall plot that David Lynch's movie follows, which is a little bit different, like especially when it gets to the ending of the book, quite a bit different at the end.
All of it and all of it's just like basically just slammed together pretty aggressively. If I'm
Absolutely. So Martin Alper, he's a businessman. He's like, this is the best I got. So he starts shopping around this product to few different developers. Some people who do more like point click adventures. Some people who do more like action games. And eventually he lands on this developer called Cryo Interactive. Cryo Interactive is a French-based video game developer that basically housed independent video game developers on like a contract basis, and they would publish those games and share the royalties. So think of it as kind of like a record label for video game developers. You make video games, you go to this person to help you publish it, and then it goes on from there. That sort of thing.
So you have a product, you just have access a little bit more to a market that way.
Exactly. So so when Martin Alper comes in contact with Cryo Interactive, they're like, yeah, let's do it. Let's make this game. They start talking ideas, and what they kind of come up on is kind of this RPG adventure / strategy hybrid thing. However, at this time, no formal document or formal contract is struck. Everything is just a verbal contract for all intents and purposes.
Oh no.
Cryo starts developing on the game, but because they're based in France and Alper and Virgin Interactive are based in the United States, communication starts breaking down immediately. They get very, very sporadic updates on the game and where it is. Eventually, it gets to a point where Virgin Interactive is like pretty pissed with how the game is coming forward from Cryo Interactive, that they cancel the game.
Oh,
yeah. So they cancel the Cryo Interactive game and then give a contract to another studio called Westwood Studios. Westwood Studios takes it and they're like, yeah, we'll get started on it. And it's like, it's real, it's legit. They're based in the States, so the communication's all there. However, at the same time, nobody told Cryo Interactive that their game was canceled. So they kept on working on it for months.
Oh no.
Eventually, because the communication breakdown, there was a number of leadership changes from the Cryo Interactive side and the Virgin Interactive side. It finally comes around that Cryo Interactive has been still working on this game. Essentially, they just came knocking on Virgin's door and was like, hey, the game is done. And they were like, who are you? And we're like, we're the guys that you told to make the Dune game. And they were like, oh, yeah. And they're like also trying to hide like Westwood Studios in like the other room. It's like kind of like getting caught cheating.
Oh my God.
In like this dumb corporate way. So instead of like telling Cryo, instead of getting mad at them for it, they were like, okay, let's see what you got. And they looked at like this 100-page design document and they were like, this is actually not a bad idea. And Cryo Interactive's game is super, super, super weird. So eventually it comes out and it comes out first and it earns the title of Dune, the actual Dune title for the video game, just Dune. And it gets like pretty okay reviews. And it's really interesting in a game because you play as Paul Atreides, the main character in the book. And it's like a first person sort of point and click adventure where you go from place to place to place, talking to characters, getting quests, and then you pull out into like this map sort of thing that covers like the Arrakis. It just covers the sands of Arrakis. And you have to like place troops in certain locations. You have to, it's much more kind of like, I'd say like Civilization in terms of the management, but then you can zoom in as Paul Atreides and actually visit the locations and talk to people. So it's very close to that like Civilization gameplay loop in a fun and interesting way. But the weird thing is, and part of the reason why it doesn't do too well is that the Cryo Interactive game has a lot of like French aesthetics to it. Like even though they're working off the Dune property, the David Lynch Dune property, they change a bunch of things and use like very like European-esque footage, or not footage, like art, like European-esque like art that's like very distinctly different from what an American feel to these things. And excuse me.
No, please.
It affects the sales and the overall outlook on the game because it's just too weird for American audiences. Like they even go as far as changing some of the look of characters from the movie into the game. Like characters like Gurney Halleck and Duke Leto, they look far different in the game. But if you look at them in the movie as well, they just kind of look like normal people. So it's very hard to, or like Gurney Halleck and Duke Leto, they just look like very similar human beings, especially when you go to a pixelated format. Like it's hard to discern the differences. Or like Gurney Halleck in Duncan, Idaho. Like it's just like white guy with no beard. I guess Gurney Halleck in the movie is bald as well because it's played by Patrick Stewart. But you know what I mean? Like the translation of the look of the characters just don't go over well into pixelated form. So they have to change the look of these characters quite a bit. That's my interpretation of it because I don't see why they would change it so much. And some of the changes that they make are like fucking bizarre. But I don't know. Maybe I'll just chalk it up to the fact that they're European and they have like different sensibilities than us crazy North Americans. So the game releases.
I mean, at this point, it's like, Europe. I would say, they're European. Might be a solid summary. It's just like, that's a lot of the artistic differences.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, continue.
They released the game. It does okay. Meanwhile, Westwood Studios is working on their game, and within a couple of months, like released the very same year, 1992, they released their Dune game, and their Dune game is what establishes everything we understand about RTS games. So when they got the contract, Virgin Games went to them and was like, hey, we want this game to be very close to a game called Herzog Zwei. And Herzog Zwei is like a early precursor to real-time strategy where you play as a ship mech type thing, and your job is to drop tanks and infantry at certain points on a map to capture goals, complete missions, that sort of thing. So rather than you using a mouse, you're actually playing a character on the field, dropping characters everywhere. At the time, the idea of using a mouse and keyboard for strategy games was like unheard of. And at the time, like mouses weren't really kind of like used in the lexicon of computer gaming quite yet. Everything was done on a keyboard. But in a weird way, they took Westwood Studios took inspiration from the Mac interface from the 90s, because Mac really changed the game in terms of ease of use for users back in the 90s when it comes to computing. Because back then you would have like just a computer and a keyboard, and that's how you like navigated the screen. I think the mouse was introduced some point later. I can't remember if it was Mac who introduced the mouse or if it was Microsoft who introduced the mouse. The mouse showed up eventually, and with the mouse, it added such a layer of interactivity on your screen that Westwood Studios saw this and they were like, how do we use this mouse to have players interact with the world around them? And that's what they did. They brought in the mouse as a tool for players that has never been done before, and it sped up the gameplay to like an astronomical rate. Before this, wargaming was a lot of like turn-based stuff. Think like Warhammer, right? You would do your turn, or chess or something. You do your turn, you move your pieces. Then the next player would do theirs. They would move their pieces, and at some point there'll be a battle kind of calculated through math or something like that. This changed that and made it far more interactive and fast and fun. So that changed the game. The other thing that they introduced is light base building in the game. So what we know of like basic RTS like strategy gameplay, where you have a base, you create some characters to harvest some sort of resource. That stuff was all done in Dune 2, the Westwood Studios game. Very first. And Spice was like that resource. That very first idea came from Dune, that resource gathering mechanic that we all know from like StarCraft, you know?
No.
It just all comes from Dune, baby. It's all like the spice was that resource. So you would create a base, you create a little spice harvesting unit. It would go out, harvest spice, bring the spice back, change that into currency, use that currency to purchase your unit. You drop the units onto the screen. The difference was back then, they didn't have the capabilities to like select a bunch of characters at once. You would have to move every character on the screen individually. And I played a version of it. You can actually, if you go on the Internet Archive somewhere, you can play it like in the browser screen, and you can't use your mouse clicking, like your the mouse click on it. You have to use the space bar to select things. So there's a bunch of like weird archaic things that that just like don't work very well, but you know, it is what it is. They released the game and it does much, much better in North America. And like I said, establishes the RTS genre as we know it today. So after this, Westwood Studios would go on and make Command and Conquer, using all the using all the knowledge that they gathered from making Dune. They just made Command and Conquer. And they also did like a couple additional Dune games kind of leading into 2002-ish, 2001-ish. One called like Dune 2000, and another one called like Dune Emperor of Arrakis or Emperor of Dune or something like that. And think of these as like very similar to like the original RTS strategy, just like, you know, more units on screen, a little bit more, some better capabilities. It looks better. The graphics are a bit more updated, but the core is still there. And that goes on, inspires like, you know, countless RTS games forever and ever and ever. And, you know, basically, you know, StarCraft, they're responsible for like, inspiring that mode of gaming. And I think, and in like a weird way, creating that first kernel that would become like the esports rage that was StarCraft, because StarCraft is such a huge esports game, even to this day.
Mm-hmm.
So like, to me, it's just crazy that like Dune was so instrumental in like inspiring so many things like Star Wars and changing changing how like we think about sci-fi, and then also it changes like video games in this weird kind of like in by accident too. Because if it wasn't for the fact that Cryo Interactive and Virgin Interactive stopped talking to each other and just that communication breakdown happened, we wouldn't have Westwood coming in and picking up the pieces and making their own game, thus changing the strategy game elements as we know it, that's just bonkers to me. That just gives like Dune just like a little level up to me. The unfortunate story though for both of these studios, both Westwood Studios and Cryo Interactive, is around the late 90s, early 2000s, both studios closed. Westwood Studios was bought out by EA because Virgin Interactive was bought out by EA. And they were basically given a choice. They were like, you either work for EA or you're no longer an employee anymore. And it resulted in like hundreds of layoffs and stuff like that. It sucks. Cryo Interactive, on the other hand, did one more Dune game in the early 2000s, also called Dune. Just called Dune. And this was kind of like coinciding with the Sci-Fi Channel's adaptation of Dune that was happening in the early 2000s. However, this particular game like sunk the company. It was poorly made. I saw a video, like you can't get your hands on it today. It is just like in the wind. It was only released in Europe as well for some weird reason. I don't know why, but I think they just didn't have the money to actually create enough copies to sell it in the United States or North America in general. So it was only released in Europe, and I saw footage of it, and it's just bad. It's like a really bad knockoff of Prince of Persia, just with like no fun.
Oh no! Oh my god! I would say that hurts my soul even just to imagine that.
Yeah, it's a rough story for them, and they just never came out of it. And now I don't know what has happened with the rest of the team at Cryo or the rest of the team at Westwood. But the big thing is, man, we got Command and Conquer out of it. We got StarCraft out of it. We got Warcraft out of it. Like it was huge. It was huge back then.
It's stunning that like Dune's just that influential, just in an entirely different way. And it's also just kind of funny to me, just like, I know a lot of people who love Dune. Absolutely love Dune. I was just gonna say your co-host on Last Gen Arcade, for example. I also know a lot of people who fucking love StarCraft. They've almost got a 6-pack ab on their clicker finger. That is how much they love StarCraft. And that is not a Venn diagram that collides with me in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
So it's just really funny for me that this is just like, oh, if it wasn't for this, we wouldn't have StarCraft.
Yeah. If it wasn't for Dune,
really any of the RTS. Yeah. Or esports, or even Lord knows what else.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. Like Dune has its figures like permeating through pop culture in so many weird, incredible ways that I just like. Every time I peel back a layer of that onion, there's always something tastier on the inside, even though it's an onion.
Yep, I was just gonna say I appreciated the metaphor right up until that's an onion.
Yeah,
no,
maybe I should use cake.
I was just saying, cake would work. Cake would work. Oh, God. I'll say this is a bad time not to eat dinner before recording. All right. So we're back up. All right. So, Will, first of all, thank you for that. You have blown my mind. Like, this is genuinely a thing I knew very little about, because I would say, nerd confession, I have really only read, I've read half of the first, I've read half of, Dune proper, and it defeated me. I was 16 book at the time, and it defeated me. Defeated me. Yeah, so it's just like, fuck it.
Yeah, it's a tough book. I've had people come up to me at work and stuff like that because they know I'm a big fan of Dune. And if my recommendation, if you ever want to try again, is get the audiobook and read the book along with the audiobook, because it just gives you more of It just keeps you in the world a little bit more. And don't get too worried about the taxation stuff that's going on in the book. Just kind of like get through it, because the back half of the book becomes like the most rockin' roller coaster action ride ever.
All right. You know what? Screw it. I'll give it a try. I've got an Audible credit. I think I can make that work for me.
Booyah. There you go.
There we are. So, Will, I've told you a true thing. You've told me a true thing. So tell me, how do you think your bullshit detector is?
I don't know. Because we're not in the same room, it's hard for me to tell.
Yeah, that's true. I would say, would it be easier if I turned on a video so I could just look you dead in the friggin' eyes?
No, keep it off, because I want even playing field.
Full audio experience, man. Full
Yeah.
audio experience. All right, so we are going to play a game of 2 truths and a lie. I would say I've got 5 categories ready. You get to pick 3 of them.
Perfect.
And again, the best, I was just going to say, all right, so the 5 categories are, I'm sorry, what did you say? Science. Miracles of evolution. It's a living. And strange places.
Okay.
I would say, again, you can start with 1 and then we can come back to them if you want.
Okay, let's start with strange places.
All right, we're starting with strange places. Again, I'll just read out 3 statements, and you tell me which one's the lie. Feel free to explain your process, because, my God, it's all content, as you can tell. As you can test, it's all content, man. Feel free to give as an elaborate an explanation as you need.
Sure, I got you.
All right, so, statement the first. There is a house entirely made of tombstones in Petersburg, Virginia. During the Great Depression, Poplar Lawn Cemetery fell into disrepair. As a cost and time-cutting measure, they replaced the original tombstones with flat markers indicating the burial spots. However, they still had a load of tombstones to use in some way. And as building materials weren't cheap, a man in nearby Petersburg purchased the stones for $45 for the whole lot, and built his house out of them. As of this writing, the house still stands today.
Okay.
That's number 1. Number 2. There's a house in Santiago, Chile, that is designed and built for the exclusive purpose of keeping the spirit of a real estate magnate's wife within the house so he could continue living with her after her passing. Oh yeah, no, I was just going to say, it gets fun. It doesn't get funnier. It gets sadder. It gets weirder.
I love it already.
Araya Gonzalez's wife, Carla, was diagnosed with leukemia in 2019 and was given 1 year to live. Unable to face a life without his wife, and of course being a real estate magnate, so richer than sin, Araya commissioned a house chock full of spiritual symbols to keep the spirits out, but inverted them, which meant they would be trapped within the house. In theory, this would prevent Carla's spirit from leaving, allowing Araya to continue living with her as he did before. The house can be viewed beyond a fence, but since it's a private residence still in use today, there is no tour.
Okay. All right.
Number 3. Gets weirder. Pariklan Patsaspuisto is a sculpture garden created by Finnish sculptor Veikko Ronkansson in the south of Finland. Finnish names. Just so musical. He managed to create a handful of humanoid statues per year, starting in 1961, and ended in 2010 with over 560 statues on a half-hectare of land. Over 200 of them are located in his, quote, yoga garden, in varying yoga positions. The quotes are theirs, not mine. I should really emphasize that part. However, the interesting part is that a significant portion of these statues have a somewhat uncanny valley effect, which is accentuated by the fact he used actual human teeth in many of the mouths of the statues. For €5 today, you can wander the sculpture garden that the reclusive artist lived in here for over 50 years. Half a hectare full of statues with human teeth.
In the fuck?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, Will, now that I've potentially ruined your sleep for the next couple weeks.
Yeah, maybe.
What do you think is the lie? The house made of tombstones? I would say the house in Chile where the real estate magnate built it to keep his wife's spirit within the house, or the Finnish sculpture garden with 560 statues with human teeth.
Okay. This is tough. Okay. So my gut is probably leaning towards the sculptures and the teeth, because 500 sculptures to me seems absolutely crazy to make in a 50-year period. And I feel like there was something you were saying in it's something you were saying while you were telling that story that contradicted itself. That you said something along the lines of like one sculpture a year, or maybe one sculpture. If it was one sculpture a month, maybe it could work. But I think I heard you say one sculpture a year. But don't correct it.
A handful of humanoid statues.
Yeah, a handful. Okay. Yeah. Something like that. However, the other story of the real estate magnate and the wife, that sounds eerily similar to that house in, I think it's in San Jose now, where the Winchester house. Do you know what the house I'm talking about?
I was just gonna say I considered it for the show, then I realized, oh fuck, everybody's done it.
Yeah, the Winchester house is a very famous house. I went there actually. I went there as a kid, and it is a pretty freaky house. Like there's doorways that like lead to like just brick walls and stairways that just go up to nothing. And I remember when I was there, I opened up a door, and like one of the tour managers was like, whoa, don't do that, because it's just a straight drop into a kitchen sink. And I was like, Jesus.
Oh, shit. They don't fuck around. Well, I mean, admittedly, if you're trying to keep evil spirits out, what do you care if they go through a garburator?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I think the Lady Winchester was thinking. Okay, and when it comes to the tombstone one, that sounds pretty plausible to me. That just sounds like good planning, you know? You got a whole bunch of bricks hanging around, let's make a house. That just sounds like
100% not
like smart.
Yep, 100% not cursed at all. Probably not cursed at all.
Probably.
Not at all a thing that a spirit would become attached to if you believed in that sort of thing.
Okay. I'm going to go with my gut. I'm going to say the statues is not real.
All right, I was just going to say we're locking in statues. And unfortunately, you are incorrect.
No.
I was just going to say the house in Santiago, Chile. You're right. Ripped most of it off from the Winchester Mystery House.
I should have known.
And again, because you are a good person, I am not going to send you the link to the sculpture garden, because honest to God, like, I needed to go watch some happy videos after doing that little bit of research, because again, by and large, the artist was supposedly like very nice person, loved having people to see the garden. All those fucking teeth.
Oh,
those fucking teeth.
That's so gross. Wow. Okay, well, at least I know. At least I followed your thought pattern with the Chile house.
You did. I was just gonna say. I was just like, oh, son of a bitch, you might have this. Oh God.
God damn it. All right. Well, now I know not to trust my gut for the next one.
All right, you got. I'm sorry. What did you say? Science, miracles of evolution, and it's a living.
Let's do. It's a living.
Yeah, I would say just imagine like the Flints, just like a dinosaur being used as like a staircase in the Flintstones.
It's a living.
That's the one. That's the one. All right. In ancient Egypt, servants were smeared with honey to attract flies away from the pharaoh. While this would have been at the very least an incredibly uncomfortable time for said servant, it being Egypt, ridiculously hot, and definitely surrounded by buzzing insects at all times, it wasn't all bad. At the end of the day, the servant got to keep said honey that was smeared on them to bring back to their families as something as a sweet treat.
Aw, that's nice. That's nice of that pharaoh.
You know what? I get, part of me is just like, does he take it back? But then again, actually, some of the maniacs that ruled Egypt, yeah, they would have absolutely scraped that honey off and just like, no, you go back and just being slightly sticky and just disappointed with life. All right. Number 2. The royal taster had a relatively rarefied place in society, with the Britons, the Scots, the Norsemen, and the Welsh all staking claims on very similar places. Paranoia was abounded. Many believed that their rivals were not above poison and employed people that would taste any food brought before royalty and consume it. The problem? Nobody really wanted the job. So, King Henry II ended up using convicted criminals as the tasters, giving them promises of pardons for their crimes if they accepted the position and made it through 6 months alive.
Huh. Okay. All right. That's a living.
That's a living. Or if you make it through 6 months, that's a living. Otherwise, it's a dying.
Okay.
All right. And number 3. There are instances of tarantulas in the Amazon that live in the same burrows as humming frogs. Apparently, the secretion of the humming frogs are terrible enough that the tarantulas determine that they aren't worth eating, but the frogs are small enough to deal with ants and other insect intruders that may eat or destroy the spider's eggs. As a result, this sort of co-union is actually pretty common around the Amazon.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
So
I was just going to say honey servants, England. Never mind. You've got this. Go.
yeah. We got honey servants, we got convicted taste testers, and we've got symbiotic tarantula frog relations.
Yep.
I feel like I've heard the symbiotic tarantula frog relations before on some nature documentary, and I am pretty sure the honey one, that sounds pretty true to me. The taste tester one, the royal taster, I think is true in parts, but I don't know if it was true for the convicted felon thing. Okay, I'm going to go with the convicted felon of Henry II.
All right. I would say we're locking in convicted felons. Ding, ding, ding. You're on the board. You are on the board, Mr. Cowan.
Yes. Did that.
It is getting very disconcerting how in my head you are right now.
I think we just end up watching the same documentaries all the time.
I won't lie, probably. There's only so many that us internet people go through.
Yeah.
All right. I was just to say. So we're going for 2 and getting, well, a possibility of beating Nathan's score, of which we will reveal at the end.
Okay. Well, we're going up against Nathan, so I have to just destroy him right now. All right. What's the
absolutely
other categories there, bud?
All right. We've got. I'm sorry. What did you say? Science and miracles of evolution.
I'm sorry. What did you say?
There we are. That's the one.
Okay.
I'm beginning to realize that, oh no, I've probably, with my slight lisp, I'm beginning to realize having a category with, I'm sorry, what did you say? Oh no, that could end real badly.
It's all good. We're good.
We're good. All right, deep breath in, deep breath out. All right, statement the first. The name of the cocoa beans comes from the Aztec word cocoa, meaning testicle. Given that in a slightly unfavorable position, it would somewhat look like a testicle, and that cocoa butter could be used both in the preparation of sumptuous foods before lovemaking and in a more direct way in the act itself. The name carried on, albeit without the connotations elsewhere in the world.
Okay. That's interesting.
Number 2. There is a very particular reason why there are so many rivers called the Avon in England and Scotland. When the Romans made their way to what would eventually become the British Isles, they brought their cartographers in tow. So, when they asked the local Britons and Celts what exactly these rivers were called, they responded, Avon. So the Romans wrote that down, and named it as such in their maps. What they didn't bother to check, until it was too late, was that Avon was Celtic for river. So there's a real distinct possibility that the locals just thought they were helping out some incredibly slow new arrivals. Just imagine, just a couple hundred armed people comes up, hey, what's that?
It's a river.
Yep, it's like, wow, all right. I'd roast them more, but they outnumber me 200 to 1.
Yeah, that's great stuff.
All right, and number 3. Nimrod actually means a skillful hunter. In biblical times, Nimrod was in fact the great-grandson of Noah, a powerful king. Bugs Bunny called Elmer Fudd a Nimrod in an episode of Looney Tunes, and that statement stuck so much that we consider a Nimrod an inept person as a result. So Bugs Bunny turned an entire definition of a word around.
Okay. That sounds very Bugs Bunny-ish. I could see Looney Tunes doing that. And I have heard the name Nimrod used in other historical and possibly biblical connotations in the past. I think there was like a King Nimrod at some point. Maybe that was the Nimrod that we're talking about, but I'm not entirely sure. Avon. So I was in England, but I don't remember seeing a river Avon. But that doesn't mean it's not there. I just didn't look at it. I just wasn't hanging out in rivers.
You were too busy getting engaged.
Yeah.
We get it.
And the first one was, what was the first one again?
The cocoa bean. I would say the name of the cocoa beans coming from the Aztec word cocoa, which meant testicle.
Yes, Aztec and cocoa. That's also pretty plausible, but I'm not entirely sure. This is tough. This is tough. Okay.
Listen, if I've learned anything, it's that I can apparently just break people's brains in these episodes.
Yeah, these are good. These are really good. You should have a podcast. Cocoa.
Listen, I'll get on it. I'll get on it. One of these days. Who has the time?
Cocoa, Avon. I already forgot the last one. These are so complicated that I have.
I would say Nimrod actually meant the skillful hunter. Yeah.
Yeah. Nimrod, Cocoa, and Avon. Nimrod, Cocoa, and Avon. Oh man. I'm gonna go with Avon.
You're going with Avon? All right.
Yes, I think so.
Well, I have good news and bad. I have good news and bad news. The good news is that you have a very successful band, multiple podcasts, and a fiance who loves you. The bad news is that is wrong.
Oh, was it Cocoa?
I would say it's a. Yep.
Oh.
Yep. Don't listen to your gut, Will. Don't listen to your gut.
Don't listen to my gut.
If you've learned anything from this show, don't listen to your gut. You are actually, I think, the third person I've had on this show that has almost said that exact same thing. Don't listen to my gut. I would say if I'd gone against my gut, I'd be fine.
Yeah. And I think, Nimrod, I think I knew of already. I think it was like a King Nimrod at some point. That's interesting though. Yep. Oh, wow. Oh, well, I tried my best.
Also an incredibly terrifying sentinel, but I digress.
Yeah.
That's probably a different thing entirely. I would say, well, good news, Will. You are, I would say, 1 out of 3. You are not in last place for all of my guests.
Hey, that's great.
Unfortunately, Nathan beat you.
I figured as much. He's a smart cookie. He's smarter than I am.
I was just gonna say listen, it's very much a mixed bag, and that's the thing I inexplicably pride myself on. There's very little things that are just like, I'm an expert in cocoa beans. Of course I knew this.
Yeah, absolutely.
He knew a lot more than pretty much anyone did. Like the Winchester Mystery House is like, oh shit, he might have this.
Yeah.
Oh shit, he might have this.
Oh well.
All right. First of all, thank you so much for being here, Will. What would you like to plug? I would say, do you want to talk about your bands? Do you want to talk about your podcasts? Do you want to talk? Oh, Jesus, what do you want to talk about? Fire away. This is your time now.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'd say check out the Chapter by Chapter podcast on Spotify. Well, anywhere you get your podcast. We are going into season 6, The Shadow Rising. Like I said earlier, it is probably the most unhinged season of podcasting that I've done yet. We are genuinely going crazy. Also check out my other show, Last Gen Arcade, where Nathan and I dive into the annals of video game history. You got a taste of what we kind of do here, but Nathan does the bulk of the research on our show, and he does a far, 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 far better job. And I just kind of like show up as color commentary and scream about beans or whatever. We just did the very first Fable game, which is very interesting history, and a lot of people have a lot of history with that game, so that was pretty fun. We're going to be going into the original Doom in our upcoming episodes here, so that's going to be super fun. We're probably going to have a good friend of ours, Colin Munch, show up on that episode. He was available. He was with us when we did the Knights of the Old Republic episode that we did last year at some point. And if you don't want to hear me talk, you can always check out my band, the Galacticas, on wherever you get your music. We are in the middle of, we just wrapped up an EP recording right now, so we're planning on releasing that by September. If you live in the Alberta area, you can catch us in Edmonton, Innisfail, Lethbridge, Fernie when we can get around there. We're a traveling road show, so there's plenty of opportunities to catch us whenever we're playing if you live in the area. And I think that is everything I have to talk about there, man. I really appreciate the time. I really appreciate bringing me on. This was a lot of fun.
Well, thank you for coming on, because I know I'm catching you and just like, great, you have an hour and a half. This is the time. This is the time. So yes, thank you very much. And we will have Will back on the Tournament of Champions, which will be happening soon. As we speak, I am frenetically working on, well, not as we speak, I'm frenetically working on a Google document, but just before and directly after we speak, I am frenetically working on a Google document to see, God, who's ready, because corralling 8 different people across time zones, man, it's a thing.
It's a thing. It's a thing. Yeah.
It's a thing. It is a thing. But anyways, thank you very much. And, well, have a good night, everybody. Thanks for listening.